The following program contains views that are not those of WVTC, iNetworks Communications, their subsidiaries, affiliates, or financial supporters.
Listen, there's something about going back to the old landmark. And right about now, I just want to go back to the way we used to have church. They don't do church like this no more. So I brought a couple of my friends to help me show you how it's really done. Listen to this. I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. I'm a soldier in the army. I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. I'm a soldier in the army. I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier in the army. I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. I'm a soldier in the army. Well, I'm fighting for my life in the army of the Lord. If I die, let me die in the army. Put your hands together, clap, clap, clap your hands. Everybody just clap your hands. I like this song right here. Oh, the devil thought he had me. I got away. The devil thought he had me. I got away. Oh, the devil thought he had me. I got away. Oh, the devil thought he had me. Oh, I got away. But I got away. 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 I got away.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever it is, wherever you are. My name is LaDonna Miller. I am here with our journey. During our journey, what we do is we take the opportunity to pause to learn a bit about mental health and how it affects us in our daily lives. And so this information is to be used for informational purposes or educational purposes, not necessarily to diagnose or to say that you have a particular problem. So that way we can get ready to navigate through some things. A little bit about me. I am a licensed clinical social worker here in the state of Illinois, primarily working with adults and adolescents experiencing anxiety, ADHD, OCD, and depression. And so I bring a little insight each segment or each week for us to learn a little bit about how we can gather information and adapt it to our daily lives. Okay. And so for today's segment, what we'll be processing, learning about, and gathering information is seasonal affective disorder. Okay. And so it's really the depression. Okay, we're going to go through and dive in a bit to understand what SAD looks like, what seasonal affective depression is, who it can affect, and some ways in which we can really combat the depressed mood or depressed state of being in our daily lives. Okay. And as you know, I like to give a little bit of background as to what made me select the particular topic that we're discussing. I found this to be something that's helpful because for many clients of mine who may not clinically be diagnosed with depression throughout the year, oftentimes when the seasons change, we're noticing those depressed moods coming up. And so we're right here at the cusp of a season change. We just jumped right on into the fall season, the autumn season, and we are really noticing, especially here for us in the Midwest, that it's becoming darker earlier. We're being able to it'll see a little bit dimmer, like it's darker outside, it's going to get darker as opposed to it being, pushed back as it is in the spring and the summer until later in the evening, right? And we're noticing those changes as well as the weather changes, lots of different things in the season change that's also affecting our mood and behavior. So that's for today what we're going to discuss, not so much the meteorological things, but more so how the season changing affects our mood and behavior. right? So I know some people say, well, it's just depression. It's depression that comes when the season change. In simple form or simple terms, that's basically what it is, right? The seasons change, and so does your mood. So does what's going on within you, right? And being able to grasp or cuss what that looks like is definitely something that is important, right? And so basically what sad is it's a form of depression that comes when the seasons change, right? And so oftentimes we notice people getting it, in the late part of the summer or the late part of the fall. Those are the oftentimes, right? So sometimes individuals may not get it when we're making that transition from summer to fall, but more so they may get it when we're transferring from fall to winter, right? Not that it's uncommon, but it also happens during spring and summer as well. It's just not as prevalent or common amongst individuals. However, you can take this information and really grasp it, and maybe it affects you during that particular season a little bit more than others, right? And so for us here, since we are here at fall, that's what we're going to primarily use as some examples, all right, to walk us through. I'm not going to use no names. I told you I'm going to make up some different names. There's people who was getting offended, and y'all was sending me text messages and everything talking about I was talking about y'all. I promise y'all, I ain't even know y'all when y'all in y'all situations and circumstances. All right. And so I do have to put this disclaimer before we hop in. I am a therapist. I am not your therapist. If you do seek or would like some additional care, feel free to reach out and I can definitely get you connected to someone if it's not me. We're just taking this information for information and educational purposes. I am not liable, nor cessation liable for any information that is provided here, but rather some information that'll take you so that way you know what you're going to be working with, okay, and know what's going on. All right. Sorry about that. I forgot to put it at the beginning. All right. And so being able to cope and to understand, right? And so sometimes we call it kind of the winter blues, the fall blues, right? It's coming up. And before people didn't really have a term for it, right? Like this, it's been out for a while, but oftentimes in many communities, we don't have a word for it. Like, oh, I just get sad, when it's wintertime, or I get sad, when it get dark early. But I don't have no depression or nothing like that. In fact, it just comes up when those seasons change, and it may go away, and you may not have it every year. Right? It's not something like, oh, yes, you was diagnosed with seasonal affective depression, and now you got it forever. And it's like, no, it's okay. You ain't gotta have it forever. It's not a forever thing. But it's something that comes on, right? And so this is not your normal depression, right? And so I know somebody sent the message they want us to do depression. We did depression some months ago. We'll come back to depression again. Just some regular depression, right? But I'll sprinkle a little bit in for you. So when you're going back to listen or to watch, you'll get the information, right? And so this is a little bit different than the regular old depression, right? So this comes when you it's affecting your life, it's affecting how your day-to-day things are put into place, right? And so like it's depression, but it's affected by the season, right? So people are like, oh, I just have the winter blues, I have this that's coming up. But now it's time for us to dive deeper and to know, you know what, I'm not just sad when it's the seasons are changing. This is a form of depression, and this is something that should be taken seriously. All right. So if you are noticing that these symptoms, these things that we're going to discuss are coming up for you, I do encourage you to reach out and seek some help, though. Okay. Seek some help, be able to talk to someone, be able to gather through and process through some things. We're going to get to the steps and things kind of at the bottom, at the end of the segment, right? And so there are treatments, right? So it's not that it's just here's a thing and you're stuck with it and you got to just keep going, right? So being able to know what's going on and being able to process that is going to definitely be something important. Now, just geographically here in the U.S., especially for those who are listening from the U.S., it affects primarily about 5% of the adult population, so individuals over the age of 18. Primarily within that 5%, the individuals are between the ages of 18 and 30. And not just because you're 45, it can't say that this don't happen for you, right? That's just the common ways in which we've identified and in my profession as to where the individuals are and kind of how the breakdown is set up, right? So it's not that if you pass that age, you don't have it. This is not like one of those disorders, right? This is not one of the things that we discuss, right? And so within that 5% of the US population who's experiencing or who may have seasonal affective depression, there's about 10 to 20% of people who may just get what we're calling kind of that winter blues, or kind of the I get a little sad when it get dark early, right? When the seasons change, that does affect a larger crux of individuals. And being able to know the difference is definitely going to be something important, because if it's not something that's just our everyday, or this is some winter blues, knowing the difference between seasonal affective depression and the winter blues, or the I get sad when it get dark syndrome, we're wanting to be able to gather those proper tools, the skills, the things, and the information, so that way we can move forward, right? And so many individuals ask, well, who's at risk for having seasonal affective depression, right? Like, who gets sad? And so I'll refer to it as sad throughout the segment, right? 'Cause it's a bit of a tongue twister. Like, who gets sad? And the answer is, it affects a myriad of people, but I'm going to specifically go into the nuances, so that way when you kind of getting your little checklist and you're getting some stuff together, you would know if it's you, right? And so it's more common than not in women, right? And so we're going to have those 18 to 30-year-old women. So if you're 18 to 30, you may want to pay a little bit closer attention, as this may be affecting you, or you may be gathering information for a friend or family member that this is most applicable to, right? Now, this is also something that can affect individuals who may already be diagnosed with another mood disorder, right? So you already have like depression, right, or major depressive disorder. You may have bipolar disorder. You may have something that's in those categories of a mood disorder, right? I'm not gonna go through and give you all the definitions. If you probably have one of those things that we talked about the mood before, right? It affects typically that population. It may also affect individuals who may have another form of mental illness, right, or mental health diagnosis that's not a mood disorder. So maybe those mood disorders, or depression, bipolar. It may even affect individuals who have schizophrenia, right? That's something that we've also noticed, or grown to notice, that that's something to pay attention to. All right. And so it's also something that affects individuals who are maybe at a particular place where the sunlight is not necessarily at, right? So if you in the dark for a long time, geographically speaking, then that may be another thing. You're at another risk, or another kind of part of the population who may experience sad a little bit more than others, right? Or if you live in a cloudy region within the U.S., right? That's just another pinpoint or place of the population as to who it is affecting, right? And being able to know and to thrive as to what in particular is going on. Okay, so now, y'all ask, okay, I done told y'all everybody who it could affect, who it primarily, what it is. Now we're going to hop into what does it look like, right? Like, oh my goodness, I might have said I may have seasonal affective depression. What does it look like? No worries, I got some help for you. All right. So sad is a type of depression, as we've already discussed, right? It affects individuals, typically those who may have major depressive disorder, so MDD. So meaning you're depressed kind of all the time, or you may have an acute form of depression. Those are typically individuals who may be affected, right? Now, those symptoms of what SAD looks like, so seasonal affective depression, it's feeling like you are oftentimes depressed most of the day, almost every day, right? Are you noticing that you're a little anxious, right? You kind of worried about different things. You got the jitters, maybe you're thinking about some stuff and it's a little bit kind of intrusive, like you keep having these thoughts come up about different things going on because you like excessively worrying, right? If you're noticing that you are increasing in your carb intake, right? Like your carbohydrates, or you're having some weight gain, you noticing you liking some sweets a little bit more, some bread a little bit more. That's probably a sign or symptom that you may have set, right? If you're having extreme fatigue, right, or lack of energy, low energy levels, not being able to necessarily do or function in a way in which you typically were maybe a few weeks ago, not necessarily because you don't have any time or something that's come up, but more so because your energy levels just not there, right? Being able to know and understand, hey, what's going on? Here's what's going on. Let's get ready to break some things down and thrive, right? And once you really have a take on that, we'll be able to move forward. But I ain't gonna get ahead of myself. Let me keep giving you the rest of the signs and symptoms. We're gonna get some help in just a little bit. We're gonna figure out some strategies. But let's go back to the signs and symptoms, right? Maybe you're noticing that you're feeling hopeless or helpless, right? Those feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, of you can't get ready to do things, things aren't working out well for you, stuff is just tough. You're not seeing a clear picture as to what it is your goals or the task are that's needed to be completed, or feeling like you defeated when you're trying to get ready to do something, right? Maybe you're having difficulty or trouble in concentrating. Now, if you noticing this all the time, we discussed this because there might be something else going on, right? But you're noticing at a particular time of the year, you're having difficulty in concentrating or focusing on a particular task or goal. Maybe you're feeling irritated or agitated, right? That might be something else that's coming up for you, where you're not necessarily able to move or to kind of process some things as usual, because you have some extreme irritability, or you're agitated by every little thing when it's something that you shouldn't necessarily be agitated or irritated by, but rather your patience level is running a little bit on the low side. Your patience is it's already kind of low, right? And you're unable to process and to move forward and to understand, hey, this is what's going on. Let me get ready to move past this, right? So if you're noticing your patience level a little low, check something out, right? Maybe you're noticing that your limbs are feeling like heavy, right? Like it's a little difficult for you to do like basic little things just because they're feeling heavy or kind of weighed down, and you're unable to kind of move or to process things as typical, right? As you usually would. That may be something that you are noticing, like, hey, especially if you're noticing some physical things, I'm always going to recommend this a mental health practitioner. Also, get you an appointment with your doctor, right? Go to your PCP, your primary care provider, and check in and make sure nothing else going on too, right? And so being able to move and to thrive, right? And to know exactly what it is that is going on. You may even notice that you're having a loss of interest or decreased interest in things that were typically bringing you joy, right? Like it's some things that you once before, like you used to find joy in, you used to be excited to do it, but now you're not really interested in it. It's not really fun for you to do, and you're not really understanding exactly why. This may be why, right? Like if it was a particular activity or sport that you used to like, it just used to be so fun, but then the seasons changed and now it's like this not really fun anymore. You kind of second guessing, like, what's your purpose? Why are you doing that? Like, am I wasting my time? What's going on? Well, if you noticing that's something that's kind of going on for you, pause, understand that, and then we're gonna get some tools so that way we can get ready to move forward to do something a little bit more on the different side, right? And being able to understand that, right? You're noticing that maybe you're a little bit withdrawn. You're not going outside. You're not doing any activities with your friends or family. Now, if you was already the person who was just the couch potato and never went outside, you might have, depression or something else. It may not be seasonal affective depression. You might have something else. But if you were the person who was a social butterfly and you were outside and you were engaging, and now you're withdrawn. You're maybe not necessarily able to kind of have that energy, or you're not wanting to socialize. That's going to be a sign or a symptom for you. That's something that we're going to watch out for. Maybe you're noticing some sleeping problems, right? Like maybe you having difficulty in sleeping, not like going to sleep, but more like oversleeping, right? Like you get in the bed and you in there and you just don't do it, right? Like it just ain't happening for you. You supposed to get up, those alarms, you ignore those alarms. You're not necessarily ignoring them, but you oversleeping, you ain't hearing them, right? And so you just having a good old time just sleeping. And that may be another sign or symptom that you get sad, right? Or seasonal affective depression. Or maybe you're having those thoughts of death, right? Or those thoughts of no longer wanting to be here or enacting suicide. Those may be some other things that come up for you, right? And noticing that these are some things that we're wanting to tackle, right? You may also notice, I know we gave the one end, but you may also notice some extreme weight loss, right? Or loss of appetite, not necessarily eating or kind of functioning in the way in which you typically would. You may even notice some trouble in sleeping, right? Some insomnia or just difficulty in falling asleep and staying asleep. It's also known now that we've gathered some information that there's kind of signs that we're noticing of individuals of there being even some violent behaviors that's going on. So a shift in the behavior as well to more of a violent behavior, right? Now we're going to pause. I feel like this is a good opportunity or a good time for us to take a moment, take a breather, because we've gathered a lot of information. Y'all know I'm good for giving you a lot of information, right? But I do want us to pause. We're going to listen to some music. When we come back, we're going to come back into identifying what can maybe lead to sad. And then, of course, we're going to get us some steps and tricks to process and live with it. All right. Hang tight. We'll be back in a few moments.
I made a vow to the Lord a long time ago, and I told him that I'll go through tears and disappointment, sometimes talked about, but I told the Lord I'll go where you tell me to go. Come on, let's lift up Jesus. If you want somebody to preach your word, spread the gospel all over the world, send me. Send me. If you want somebody to testify, tell of his goodness, I don't mind, send me. Send me. Up on the mountain,
All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome back. Hello, hello to everyone. For those of you all who may just be joining us or may be tuning in, my name is LaDonna Miller. We are here with our journey. This is a show about mental health, identifying things that are going on maybe in our everyday lives and ways in which we can maneuver, navigate, and work through them during our journey we call life. During today's segment, what we are processing or learning a bit about is SAD, seasonal affective depression. And we are really kind of diving in. So far, what we've been able to do was we've been able to define what it is. So, seasonal affective depression, it says the depression that shows up when the seasons change. We are highlighting or specifically talking about the season change right now being fall, coming into the fall season, how it can affect us. We having those depressed moods, being withdrawn, not necessarily going out with individuals, maybe noticing some anxiety coming up for you, some of those intrusive thoughts, or maybe even thoughts of no longer wanting to be here, being in a depressed state and wanting to end this precious thing that we have as life, right? And so we've identified it. We figured out kind of what some of those signs and symptoms. We've identified that it affects about 5% of individuals here in the U.S. And it's primarily between, and for women in the ages of 18 to 30. That does not exclude, as we said, individuals who may have they may experience this if you're over that age, or maybe if you're a male or another gender, it's okay. It may affect you as well, right? That's just what research is saying. That's the crux of the individuals, not that it does not affect anyone else, right? This isn't a thing that's like, you know what, it doesn't affect individuals, right? Or particular individuals. It's not necessarily population specific, right? So we took a pause. Now we back and updated y'all, kind of got you together to know where we are. So now we are all on the same level, right? We all know exactly where we are. So what we're going to hop into now is identifying the things that may cause seasonal affective depression, right? What are some things that lead to us having this particular diagnosis? After I do that, after I really kind of dive into the things that cause it, we're going to kind of dive into from there how it is diagnosed, right? Because I'm calling it a diagnosis. So I'm going to tell you how that works, right? Because that's always a question that individuals have. Well, how do you know that I have this? How? Now, that was a question that I had a client ask me, how you know? So we're going to go through that process of how it is that we're going to diagnose, right? So first, we're going to go to what causes it, right? And so many individuals, researchers are saying, you know what, the lack of sunlight is what's leading to it, right? But it's got to be something else. We all say like, okay, no sunlight, okay, but what else is maybe the concern, right? Now, so there's a few different things or causes, and so we're gonna go into each of those a little bit in depth, right? So that way we can have some information. So that way you're knowing, hey, this definition sounds like something I might have. These signs and symptoms may sound like something that I have. Maybe these causes are some things that I'm experiencing. So that may lead to me kind of reaching out to get that diagnosis and a good treatment plan, right? And being able to move from there, right? And so the first thing aside from sunlight, right, what we have identified is the biological clock change, right? So there being just a shift in sunlight, being less sunlight, your internal clock, your biological clock, therefore changes because, right, we've been used to for months of it turning dark at a particular time, and now your body trying to figure out, well, what's going on, right? Like it's getting dark outside. It's time to go to sleep. It's time to lay down. It's time to do the nighttime stuff. And you over here trying to work. You trying to do all of these different things. I'm gonna need you to do something different, right? That's what your body's saying. Like, hey, what's going on? Why are we still up? Why are we still doing this? It's time to lay down. It's time to do this. It's time to do our nighttime routine. I'll give you a little sneak peek. We're gonna be talking about routine soon. How routines are gonna be something helpful. But it's like it's part of my routine. What is it that we're supposed to be doing? But that internal clock is something that also not only regulates kind of, what you're supposed to be doing, right? It's a clock, it's a schedule, it's your routine. It also regulates your mood, right? Your mood, your sleep, and your hormones, right? So we know what's supposed to be going on at what particular time, and that is thrown off. So that means that everything else is going to be thrown a little bit off whack because they ain't having a good understanding as to what's supposed to be going on. And so being able to know, like, okay, this is something that I'm kind of like rocking with. And then the body like, oh, it's still getting dark at this time. Because at first the body might have thought like, y'all went on a vacation or something, a little trip. Because sometimes it'd be, we just travel, internationally. You get that passport stamp. Body thought, okay, we was on a little vacation. Then the body was like, hold on, wait, we still up in here at the same place. You over here trying to do the same stuff, and this ain't what we're supposed to be doing right now. And the body over here all confused because the sunlight then shifted, right? And now you're not on that same sleep schedule, you're not on none of that routine because of the sunlight, right? Like you still going to sleep at 10 o'clock, but it's been dark since 7. And the body was used to it getting dark at 9. So the body trying to figure out kind of what's going on, right? And so you can't necessarily just start adjusting your schedule like, well, you know what, when it get dark, it's gonna be time for me to lay down. Now, maybe you do have that luxury, right? Because I don't have that luxury because I feel bad to tell my clients so I haven't eaten. Well, y'all, it's looking a little sad right about now, and we got some evening times that we're not gonna be able to have appointments because it's already dark. I don't do appointments in the dark, right? I gotta go to sleep, gotta do something, right? Since y'all want me to use y'all for an example, I told y'all I'm gonna use myself as much as possible, as long as y'all don't be thinking there's something that's going on, right? But being able to know, right, this is our daily schedule, this is something that's going on, this is how we navigate, this is how we do something just a little bit on the different side, right? The next thing may be that we have a brain chemical imbalance. So what that looks like is the thing that we have all on the inside of our brain, they call neurotransmitters. I told y'all at the beginning when I started the show, I'm not going to go real all psychological. I'm going to break it down so we all can understand it. And so for this, the things that's moving around, they call neurotransmitters. That's the stuff that send the signals to the different places in which we're going. They transmit the neuro. Okay, got it. All right. So the chemicals that's inside of that is called serotonin, right? So that's one of the things. Serotonin is responsible for us feeling happy, right? So sometimes you might want to get the infusion of serotonin. It don't work like that. You can go get an infusion unless you got some medication or you are gathering something from a specialist. They can do something like that, right? But we're gonna work and process through how we can get some serotonin kind of given to us. We can gather some and make our own serotonin levels be able to move up. I'm so excited, y'all, because we're gonna get ready to get all in there. Like, what's gonna cause us some happiness? Well, how we gonna get ready to thrive? What we gonna get ready to do to make us a little bit on the happy side, right? Now, if you already noticing, like, hey, I probably have sad, so seasonal affective depression, right? I probably have sad. That's probably because your serotonin levels they a little bit on the low side, right? So that's the chemical imbalance, right? That's the brain chemical imbalance. Your serotonin levels are low, all right? There's nothing that's really bringing you happiness, and for whatever reason, the serotonin is low, right? And so sunlight, I told y'all we weren't gonna go all into, astrology and meteorology, but the sun got a whole bunch to do with this situation, right? Our serotonin levels are oftentimes regulated by the sun. Who knew? Right? And so by us not having no sun, so the wintertime, this time when it's getting all dark or when it's just gloomy all the time, right? Like I told y'all one of the symptoms earlier, like, hey, you might be in a place that's kind of cloudy. You probably gonna have sad a little bit more than other people because it's always cloudy where you at and you ain't got no access to the sun, right? So you probably gonna be on the serotonin low level, right? Like your serotonin may be a little bit lower, but do not fear. We can come up with some ways in which we can increase our serotonin levels, even if they're not just kind of like readily available, right? Like it's just not provided by the normal stuff that we do every day. You're gonna work a little harder, but you can definitely gather some serotonin. It's okay. And so when your serotonin levels are low, that typically leads to a depressed mood or furthering the depression, right? Now, the next thing is vitamin D deficiency, right? D is in David deficiency, right? And y'all probably know this. You may be some information that you already have, right? So when you have vitamin D, that also moves your serotonin level. So if you short on the vitamin D, then your serotonin levels are oftentimes lower because you have a vitamin D deficiency. So people who've gone to the doctor and they already kind of told you that you have a vitamin D deficiency, um, signs are things are that you probably may have seasonal affective depression, or you may just have depression, right? Depending on how long your vitamin D levels be on the low side, right? And being able to navigate and understand exactly what that's going to look like for you and processing what is going on, right? Maybe the melatonin is a little low, right? Like your melatonin boost. Melatonin, it is a it's the thing like we like, oh, that's the thing that kind of regulates kind of some sleep. The levels are a little bit lower. So if you have an elevated melatonin level, right? So a boosted up melatonin level, that's the thing that affects your sleep. So making you get some good sleep or your sleep patterns or your mood, right? If it's kind of up there, then you're gonna be sleeping, right? And so by us really having that decreased sunlight, it may create this overstimulation or over kind of population of melatonin levels in simple terms. That's as basic as I can kind of put it, right? So like in the absence of the sun, I know y'all tired of hearing the sun, but the sun got a lot to do with this. I told y'all that at the beginning of the show, right? The In the absence of the sun, our serotonin levels are gonna be lower, right? Serotonin levels are lower, vitamin D levels are lower, melatonin levels are higher, which means you want to sleep more. So you sad and now you want to sleep. You depressed and you want to sleep, right? Your brain not happy because you don't have no serotonin, and now you got all this melatonin, and now you want to sleep. Okay. And so it's got a lot to do with the situation, right? And another thing that may cause it, and the last thing I told you, I ain't gonna stay on the sun forever, are negative thoughts, right? Some thoughts that are coming up for you, things that are present for you, stress, right? Those negative thoughts can be rooted in stress or anxiety, or even those thoughts about the winter and the fall coming, right? That the season's changing. You just sad about it having the season change, and it's getting you sad. Like you getting seasonal affective depression because you just sad because the season that came, right? The summertime is over. You ain't having no wonderful summer nights, no summer vacations, no summer all of that. And now you just sad. Now you sad. You sad, right? And so being able to understand and to process that, hey, this is how things operate. This is how we maneuver. This is how we change, and the seasons change, right? But we should be able to identify, excuse me, some ways in which we are able to process, some ways in which we are able to thrive and move, right? And so that's definitely something that is important, right? That's important. That's something for us to do, right? And so for us to navigate and for us to really get a clearer picture, what I'm going to do now is for us to go through, well, how do you diagnose this, right? Like how you know I don't got just regular depression, how you know I don't have the winter blues, the fall blues, the I'm just a little sad because the summer over situation. How do you know that I have seasonal affective depression? Right? How was this diagnosed? How was the individual able to go through and tell me this is something that I have? All right. So first things first is gonna be y'all gather these symptoms and signs. We done spent our time dissecting through this. If you noticing that you have some of these things that's going on for you, right? Like that these signs and symptoms are kind of sounding, ringing the bell, sounding like something that's you, or sound like something that's a family member who you gonna share the information with, right? Like I do understand it. We not all gathering information for ourselves. Maybe we passing it along to other people, right? And so if you notice that this is something that's going on, being able to know, like, okay, let's move forward. Let's be able to identify exactly what it is, so that way we can do something a little bit differently, right? So you can go show up first to a medical professional. If you have like a different kind of like things, you can go to a medical professional, and or you're gonna go to a mental health clinician, right? You can go to a therapist, you can go to a counselor, you're gonna go to somebody that's gonna get you some mental health assistance. So they're gonna be able to do this diagnosis for you, right? They're gonna diagnose, they're gonna assess, gather some information from you, so then they can tell you, yes, this is something that you have, and create a treatment plan that's gonna work just for you. Nobody's treatment plan is the same. It's gonna be one especially made just for what's going on for you and what you can do to have things to be a little bit different. Okay. And so it's not for you to diagnose yourself like, yes, I got sad, I'm sad, yeah, like this. Do not diagnose yourself. Go seek some assistance, right? And so if for nothing else, you may have depression that's been there for a while and you're not just now noticing it, right? And you're able to process, hey, what's going on? Or it may be something like a more complex mental health issue or concern. It may not be this, right? I don't want to scare you and say, oh, it might be something different. It may be something a little bit different. So that way you can get the proper treatment, the treatment that is appropriate for you and your concerns that's going on, right? And being able to know that, right? And so what we'll do is fill out kind of a questionnaire, right? So it's going to be like an assessment, gathering some things from a self-assessment, meaning you as the individual, the patient, the client, you would let us know self-reporting what's been going on, right? So it's going to ask some different questions about like, how often in the last X number of days have you been feeling sad? How often have you maybe not been able to get out of bed? Often you've been maybe sleeping or oversleeping, right? It's going to be like, it's going to ask some different questions for you to kind of go and figure it out. Then we got a score and a little chart. And from there, we give you the thing, right? You got it, you don't have it. Maybe there's something else you may have. Here's something to consider. Create a treatment plan, right? And so there's not necessarily like a blood test or something like that, right? If you go to the doctor. However, they may draw some blood from you because they want to check some other things, right? Like I told you how we rule out other things, especially when you're noticing maybe some of those physical symptoms that were going on for you, like your limbs, your this, your that, right? Like the sleep levels. If you're noticing kind of a lot of those physical kind of symptoms and things of that regard, they may do some different blood tests just to rule out some other medical things, because maybe it's not seasonal affective depression. It may be something that's physically going on and not necessarily psychological, or it could be a combination of both. And so just for due diligence purposes, that is something that they are kind of going through to figure out to get you some of that assistance and knowing exactly where you are and to be able to thrive from there, right? And so the particular criteria or things that we would look for and kind of line up for us to rule out winter blues or, it get dark early blues, right? So if you are experiencing, if we notice that there are higher numbers for major depressive disorder, so MDD, so there's major depression, right? If the depressive episodes are coming up throughout that particular season for 2 consecutive years, right? So if it's something you had last year, you got it this year, it's the same kind of symptoms, you probably have SAD, right? And they're happening more frequently in a particular season than not, right? So it's not like your depression is sprinkled throughout the year. You might have another kind of depression, right? But it's concentrated in a particular time is when you are more so depressed, right? If we're noticing that, that's typically when we are going to diagnose with SAD, seasonal affective depression, right? So we're going to take one more pause. When we come back, let me give you some more steps, tricks, and strategies for us to navigate through what it is that we've identified today as seasonal affective depression, right? So hang tight. We'll be back to get those steps.
Touch somebody and tell them the Lord is blessing me.
All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome back. Uh, Hello to everyone who's maybe just joining us, and welcome back to those who are just kind of coming back with us from our short pause, right? And so, if you're just joining us, my name is LaDonna Miller. I'm here with our journey. What we are processing through today is SAD, seasonal affective depression. Right, we've identified that this is the kind of depression that comes when the seasons change. We've identified those individuals who it may affect most. We're saying at this point that it's affecting individuals, women, the ages of 18 to 30, primarily here in the US. That's about 5% of individuals, not necessarily saying that it's not including you if you're not in that particular demographic. We've broken down that a lot of our concerns as to how we get into this depressed state is connected to the sunlight, our access or exposure to the sun. We've come to know and to realize what we've broken down here during our segment is with an absence of the sun, right? So without the sun or decreased limitation of the sun, we have decreased serotonin levels. Basically, that's the stuff in the brain that make happiness, right? So it was decreased serotonin levels. We are having decreased vitamin D levels, right? So a vitamin D deficiency. As well as a boost in our melatonin levels, right? That's the stuff that make us sleepy and have us to be sleep and maybe to kind of like sleep for a while, right? So our melatonin levels are up, right? And so being able to regulate those by some things here on identifying, hey, I'm depressed, I'm withdrawn, I'm maybe not social, I'm maybe anxious, I'm having these dark thoughts, I may be even experiencing some suicidal thoughts. That's something that's going on for you, right? So now we didn't identify what it is, who it affects, how it come about, all of that, what's going on in the brain. Now we're gonna get us some help, right? Let's figure out what we can get ready to do to change that. And y'all know I don't like to just tell y'all what's going on and then we don't have a solution, right? So y'all know the first solution is always gonna be the same thing: reach out to your doctor, find you some assistance, get you some therapy, get you some help, get you something like that, right? Reach out to a medical professional and they will assist and direct and let you know kind of what's the next steps. Right? That's going to always be my first recommendation. When you are in therapy, or if you're already in therapy, right? Bring this up to your therapist. Let them know there's a particular assessment. We'll do that, get you kind of diagnosed, and let you know kind of what some steps are. All right. We went through kind of what that questionnaire, some examples of what that questionnaire would look like. All right. And so being able to thrive and to know, hey, this is something that's here. When you're in therapy, the thing that you're typically going to do is going to be called CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, basically identifying what's going on, those behaviors, and making strategic changes in your daily life. So that way you can create those changes to create a positive change or to change the behavior in which you're having, right? So if these behaviors are having you kind of in those depressed moods and you're continuing with those behaviors, that's what you're going to shift, right? Because you're going to change them, right? That's what CBT is going to assist with. The next thing is you're gonna get some light therapy. So like these lights is like 10,000 times like the magnitude of a regular light. Like it's light. But it's called light therapy, right? So it's gonna be like daylight therapy. It may be called in some spaces. Basically where the light, you kind of get it. They sometimes recommend having that light a couple hours of it, maybe in the morning time or something like that, so your body is exposed to it and it can do the stuff that it needs to do with the brain and all of that, right? That's another thing. That's another suggestion that I have, and that's something that has assisted clients of mine in the past. Right, that's something that's definitely helpful. Right, not just changing the light bulb to a day light bulb that would assist, but it's not necessarily the best form, right? Because there is a particular light that's created for this. Oftentimes, you may see them in a place where individuals have like Parkinson's. That's a common thing you may see seen on the news or seen kind of different YouTube videos or on social media where they have so they don't let them outside typically, right? Like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's patients, but they've created the insides like this nice place where they have planters and it looks like it's outside and different things, but it's really on the inside. Those are the kind of lights that they have where it imitates sunlight, right? And so that's what you would get to kind of install in your home. You wouldn't particularly get it in all the rooms. You might have it in one space. you see, you get you some of that light, and it's gonna help out for the day, right? The next thing is you may need some type of medication, right? So you can get this medication from your primary care provider or a mental health doctor, right? So a nurse practitioner or a psychiatrist, right? Or so a psychiatric nurse practitioner or a psychiatrist would be able to prescribe you a medication that's in the classification of an antidepressant, right? And it would assist in some of those chemicals being shifted in the brain to make it do what it needs to do to operate, to kind of thrive, right? For us to be able to go to our normal activities, right? And to the activities that bring you joy, the activities that bring you excitement, right? Another suggestion is going to be something that's going to sound basic, but I promise you it's going to be something that you may want to incorporate in your daily routine. Getting outside, right? Going outside, getting in some of that outside sun in, right? Especially if we've identified that the vitamin D levels are a little bit lower, right? Or you're deficient in vitamin D. So going outside, exploring, right? And being able to enjoy the outside, get some of that exercise in on the outside, right? So walking pets, exploring nature, doing some activities. So don't just go out there and just sit, right? Like that's going to help out a little bit, right? Like, whoo, that's helpful, but not necessarily the most helpful. Get some activities in while you are outside. So that way you're able to move and function and do something a little bit differently, right? It is also going to improve many of those symptoms that you may be experiencing, right? And the last and final thing that I am going to recommend is vitamin D, right? So a vitamin D supplement may be something that is going to really assist in those vitamin D levels being lower. And so that way you can kind of manipulate the way in which your body and your brain is functioning, right? Especially if we've identified that the vitamin D levels are low or deficient, right? So that's all that I have for you for today. I do hope that this information was something that's helpful and that you're using it as a tool to direct to what the next steps would be for you identifying things along your journey. That's all for now. Tune in next week for us to unpack another topic.
The following program contains views that are not those of WVTC, iNetworks Communications, their subsidiaries, affiliates, or financial supporters.